Good evening, and welcome to another broadcast of Around the Lake. This is a roundtable discussion show, staff of the Ithaca Times and the Finger Lakes community newspapers. This week we'll be talking about the standoff out in Danby between David, Cady, and a lot of law enforcement. Also the goals that the mayor of Ithaca, Svante Myrick, has for 2015, as well as the county legislature's chair, Mike Lane. What are his goals for 2015? We'll also be following up on what has been going on with Groton football, and perhaps if we get to discussion of tax abatements downtown. Their policy is up for discussion after Jason Fain was denied tax incentives. So, leading off, Keri, you were on this Cady story.
Right.
Why don't you give us a nutshell?
Right. So what happened was on December 30th, two sheriffs went to 127 Hornbrook Road to serve a warrant for it was a bench warrant for a failure to appear. He was on probation. This guy, David Cady, was on probation for DUI. And he didn't show up for a court appearance, so they went to serve a warrant. The warrant had apparently been 3 or 4 months old, and they just hadn't gotten a hold of him thus far.
I think they tried about a
Right,
dozen times,
right.
and that's what the sheriff said.
Yep. And so this time they went there, and he was home, but he was in the house hiding, and his wife, Melissa, first came out and said that he wasn't there, and the sheriffs heard him inside. So it ended up turning into a standoff because he wouldn't agree to come out. It ended up being a 60-hour standoff, although it's not clear that he was alive for even most of that time. In the process of this 60-hour standoff, there ended up being a total of upwards of 100 different police there. There were police from a whole bunch of different agencies, and some agencies just sent equipment, but in some capacity, like Pennsylvania State Police and like Onondaga and Syracuse and Elmira, Broome. There was a lot of agencies. I think Cayuga.
So
a lot of agencies represented. It was a huge show of force.
So there's been a reaction to this already.
Right. And at some point during this, David Cady shot himself. And by the end of it, the house was destroyed. We showed footage of that last week.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and it's pretty shocking when you see, this was from a DUI, and this is the result, and there's like 2 walls left on the house.
Looks like a war zone.
Yeah, it does. It looks like a tornado hit it.
But it was a rook.
Right, it was a rook. That was the name of the piece of equipment.
Right.
It was a rook.
Which is essentially a armored bulldozer.
Right, yes, it is. I looked it up. It has some mean-looking claws on the front.
It sure does.
It does. It looks really mean.
Yeah.
And so there were 2 meetings this week that dealt with that. There was the Public Safety Committee meeting, which is where the sheriff showed up with the other law enforcement officials who were involved in the event, and they gave a painfully exhaustive breakdown of exactly what happened when. And the DA showed up and talked about things a little bit, and a couple legislators asked some questions, and there was public comment, and Melissa Cady showed up, and that was tough to watch for me. I mean, I teared up a few times. Like, it was really difficult watching her speak, watching her pain.
Yeah. Very
visceral, you know?
Well, you took a great photograph. I mean, that made me choke up just looking at her photograph. She's pretty expressive.
Yeah.
And I think what's been surprising about the whole thing is the sheriff's and his response, I guess, to the community's response, which is we were more than justified in what we did. And he doesn't really seem to have a regret about how it all played out, other than that Cady took his own life.
Right. And I mean, to be clear, Cady did shoot out the window at one point. But there's a lot of unanswered questions, and Melissa Cady pointed out a lot of things that law enforcement has said that she says are not the case. Like she thinks that he died around 5 a.m. on Wednesday morning, which was before most of the damage to the house occurred.
Right, the rook wasn't even there till Thursday.
Right. She and at a Danby Town Board meeting, both she and some other community members stood up and said that they'd heard this shot around 5 a.m. on Wednesday morning. So, that's when they think that he died. And she also said that on Friday morning, by the time this finally ended, and his body was taken to the coroner in Binghamton, that he was frozen solid. The coroner said he had been dead for at least 24 hours.
Because they had cut off the power in the house, so
Right.
it was cold in there.
And I think that could also complicate the autopsy. It's possible that
Right.
they might never be able to know when exactly he
Yep.
died because he's frozen.
Yes.
So that might give
Right.
them a little escape in terms of.
But either way, it seems clear that he didn't die Friday morning.
Right.
I mean, he was dead for some period of time, after which destruction still continued to happen. And that was something that somebody at one of these meetings questioned, why things continued when they weren't getting any response. Because if he's dead, he obviously wasn't responding. The last contact with him
Right.
was 4:16 a.m. on Wednesday morning, and all the destruction happened after that. So the question was, what in no response was it that justified all this escalation?
So there's going to be questions about policy, because that's
Right.
what the sheriff fell back on, is this is just policy.
Right.
So maybe there's something about the policy that should be looked at.
Right. And he had explained that the purpose was of knocking down on these walls was to give him no place to hide, basically,
Right.
to give them clear lines of sight.
Why was getting him out of this house such a big deal? I mean, it's like, I guess I'm assuming that cutting the power out, making it cold in there, tear gas, is just ways to get him to come out. I mean,
Right.
why did they need him to come out so badly, like right
So
away?
quickly?
Yes, right.
The sheriff's response to that was, this already took 60 hours as it was. So if they didn't do that, how long would they have been waiting?
Well, he was already dead. It didn't
Right,
take
I'm not,
60 hours.
I'm not defending this. I'm just.
Let's be clear about that. It didn't. They spent 60 hours there, but that wasn't all an actual standoff. At some point, they were standing off with a dead person.
Right. But the sheriff's explanation was that they had limited resources. They were already alternating shifts as it was, so they didn't think just waiting outside his house until he came out.
But, I mean, why wait at all? Like, what's the urgency to get this guy?
Well, I agree, but this is policy. When you go
Right.
to
Right.
serve a warrant,
See,
you
we're
know
back
the
to
person's
policy
there.
again.
You're supposed to do whatever to get them out.
Well, it's amazing to me that I would say they didn't bother to learn enough about this guy to learn his schedule, to go find him when they needed to.
I don't understand why not wait until he was not in the house then. Why not get him when he walks outside?
Yeah, does he go to work? Where does he work?
Yeah,
What
they
time
could've
does he
just-
show
they
up?
could've
Why
just
is
had
Well,
this
Melissa
so?
said he does work, but I don't.
So
or
why
did.
doesn't the
She still
sheriff
talks
know
about
this?
him in the present tense.
Yeah, that's
I
gonna
agree with
keep
Chris.
happening.
They could have just assigned one cop car to wait outside the house.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the whole thing is
I need
we'll
a donut with
probably
some coffee.
we'll be yeah we'll be looking at this again. So let's kind of move on, because we're going to come back to this. This is a pretty important story.
Yeah. Yes,
because
is.
it speaks to the militarization of the police, which is a national story, and now
Yeah.
we have, unfortunately,
I
our
really didn't
local
think this would happen
exemplar.
around here.
It just keeps.
You're probably not alone.
And
Yeah.
things just keep getting more weird.
I know.
Well,
I just thought we were sort of a
we
liberal
won't
enough
exactly-
community that level of militarization wouldn't play out like this.
Well, we're
here.
not exactly leaving the topic entirely, because one of Svante Myrick's goals does concern the Ithaca Police Department.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
at least one.
Right, and we've talked about that multiple episodes, I think, and that
Yep.
Svante Myrick, his 8-point plan to reform the police is definitely one of the things on his 2015 agenda, along with rebuilding Ithaca's infrastructure. Apparently, the city has kind of put repairing the roads on the back burner for more than 20 years. And so this year they're investing a few $100,000 in adding an extra crew to the road work, in addition to just a massive amount of asphalt to repair potholes. So when I sat down with him, he wanted me to relay the message to residents to expect commutes throughout the year to be a little longer than usual, because there's going to be a steady stream of crews on the road. So that might be a little frustrating for people, but hopefully the final product will be a less bumpy ride to work. In addition to road work, of course, we'll have the Commons finish, which was a huge story for us in 2014. This was supposed to be done last July,
Right.
and for those who haven't strolled down the Commons, it's obviously not near completion.
You know, it's kind of unfair in a certain sense, because a lot of the work was below ground. You know, they kept digging it up and filling it in again as they put one utility after another back in there. And so, I mean, now it's pavers and
Right, as it's been explained to me, this will be the quick, once
Yeah.
they get going on the
Yeah.
paving, it'll just kind
and
of...
they are still working. So.
Right. No, yeah, it's slowly coming along, but that'll be done this summer, hopefully, so that's another one of his goals. In general, one of the things he wants to see get more attention is the, as he put it, the housing emergency in Ithaca. We ran a story back in the spring that Ithaca is one of the most costly places to live based on median income. And so his plan to address that is by densifying the city, adding new development to give more options for people to live, with the hopes being to bring those rents down. There's already been some of it. There's going to be some more development in the coming year. So that was definitely one of his big goals. And finally, drug reform in Ithaca is something that he wants to take big
Well, drug treatment, right?
drug treatment.
Or what do you do with offenders?
Right, and just taking a look at our drug policy in Ithaca and why it's not working. Because we did, Keri, you did the story with Bill about the heroin problem in Ithaca,
Right.
among other things. So he said, what we have in place now obviously isn't working. He's put together a team, I think, of 50 quote-unquote experts trying to figure out what Ithaca can do to address that situation. So those are the things he kind of laid out in his last year in office. And that was the last thing we talked about, whether he's going to run again. It's something he hasn't made up his mind about. So those are the things to watch out for.
Yeah, I actually felt kind of badly for him. He really wants to have like a normal life.
Right, he's just this wonderkin who's...
Well, and running the city of Ithaca is like this 24-hour day,
Yeah.
7 days a week job, the
Right.
way he does it. So he doesn't have time to like go out to dinner with somebody and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Which is kind of, he's what, 27 years old, so that's,
Yeah.
all his friends are moving on without him, he said.
Yeah, he said he talked,
Should get new friends.
talked
actually.
about
Just hang around
looking
with
on his
deadbeats, it'd be
looking
great.
on his Facebook. He talked about looking at his Facebook feed and seeing his friends get pets, having babies, and getting married, and that he wanted to do all of those things, but not necessarily in that order.
He actually is
He's
kind
a
of
funny.
funny.
Yeah, he is funny. He always gives a good soundbite.
So that's the mayor. You talked to the county ledge
Yes.
chair, Keri.
Recently reelected as chair.
Right, yeah. Mike Lane.
Yep. There wasn't a whole lot of big stuff for this year yet. It didn't sound super exciting, but I'm sure it will be. The legislature
Well, you
always
mentioned the
ends up
library.
being exciting. Yes, they will have to make not have to. They will make a decision this year on which of the developers is going to be allowed to redevelop the old library site.
Mm-hmm.
And that's been a long time in the making. I think they put the RFEI, the request for expressions of interest, out.
What's that going to become?
Oh, that's the question.
Some sort of mixed
Okay.
use. Some sort of mixed use. It's going to be
Yeah.
all the proposals are mixed use. They're part housing and part, there's space for lifelong in some of them. There's
Yeah.
space for stores in some of them. So
Yeah.
it's going to be something along those lines. So that was one thing, and also they're continuing to look at the living wage issue. They set aside $100,000 for in the 2014 budget to help contractors with the county bring their employees up to a living wage. All
So-
the county's employees are getting a living wage,
Okay.
but this is a matter of bringing up the contractors with
Like the
county.
waste disposal guys?
Yep. Solid Waste Center just got $20,000 from the county to help bring up all their employees to living wage. So they have some of this fund left to disperse, and they'll be continuing to look at. There's all these criteria they have to meet, or the contractors have to meet. Like, it can't be just any contractor with the county.
What is living wage these days? It's like $12.62.
$12.62
Okay.
if you get insurance. 13 something if there's no insurance.
Okay. So, I mean, there was some controversy about giving this money to Casella.
To for-profit companies. in
Yeah,
general,
as opposed to like social services, nonprofits, or something like that.
Right.
He didn't have anything
No, I mean that's
scintillating to say on that.
No, I mean that's been. Their criteria does not include that it has to be a nonprofit. They
Okay.
have specific criteria, and that's not one of them.
Okay. Anything else from him, or? Is that the-
Youth services. He said that was one area that they may look into shared services arrangements, because they'll need to show shared services savings of a total of 1% of the tax levy in order to have residents be eligible for rebate in the 2016 tax year.
Oh, okay.
So they're looking at possible shared services with the city.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks, Keri. So Chris, the Groton football saga
Yeah.
is now taking a turn.
Yes. Yeah, I remember when this story kind of began, got a little like tweet thing that was like, this game's been canceled, no one really knew what was going on, and never in a million years did I think, a few months later that this would blow up and people would be losing their jobs, and it just has gone crazy. So back in September, we all know there was this hazing incident among the football team. They canceled the game. Parents turned out to the school board meeting the next Monday, and got all upset about the canceled game and what's happening here. And since then, I mean, it just it hasn't gone away.
What was the hazing? Sorry, I wasn't caught up on that.
Yeah, I mean, it was an incident that happened in the boys' locker room amongst 3 players. I don't know if on television I can say what it was, but
You actually can.
I can. Yeah, I mean, what happened was these one of the senior players rubbed his genitals on one of the freshmen's face. So yeah, and these 2 kids got in trouble. Yeah, that's that's what happened.
Yeah.
Boys.
Boys.
This is our best show yet.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, high school. Yeah, and so I mean, this story just hasn't gone away. I mean, every board meeting, there's been parents that have shown up and have been very critical of the school board's leadership. Saying things like we haven't been the community has not been properly communicated with about what's going on. And just it's been a lot of criticism. It hasn't gone over well. And so then over winter break, the Groton School Board held a meeting, a special meeting that was unannounced on a Friday, middle of the afternoon, behind closed doors to negotiate a way to give TST BOCES some power in Groton School Board's decision making. And then on Monday, it was announced that the superintendent was resigning. Now, I asked Sophia Darling on Monday if
Now, who's she?
she is the school board president of Groton.
Okay.
If this was related to Jim Abrams' superintendent resignation, if this had something to do with it, and all she would say was that the split was mutual, and so whether or not that's related, I mean, to me it seems like it is.
From my experience, when someone says a split is mutual,
It was not.
Right. Yeah. So then on the Monday, walked into the cafeteria for the school board meeting. Well, first I walked to the district office. There's a sign that said, meeting in the cafeteria. So I'm like, oh boy, something's happening here. And so you walk in, and there's about 75 people, all wearing red and white, shirts and jerseys, football jerseys, parents, all the players, protesting the school decided not to renew the contracts of the football coach, football assistant coach, and 2 volunteers. So this 4-person staff,
They're all gone.
wiped out. And so everyone was there basically saying, you can't fight. You can't
really
get
their fault.
I mean, it's tough because I can
Well,
see
they
both sides.
did break
of
a
it.
rule. They weren't supposed to have no one in the locker room.
Oh, okay.
So they screwed up.
Yeah, and I can see.
That is a really weird way to haze, I gotta say. That is really
Yeah.
weird.
All right. Well, Groton.
Maybe as guys you understand, but I think this is really weird.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know how far we should go there, but okay.
It's a tough situation.
Suffice to say, it's not that weird.
Oh, you guys are weird.
Yep. Yeah. Sorry.
No, I think it's real.
I'm staying single.
Whole gender. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough situation, and it's one of these things you can see both sides. The coaches weren't there in the locker room when it happened,
Right.
and so you're supposed to have a coach there. Someone's supposed to be watching.
Yeah.
And they weren't there, so I mean, you can see that is, they should have been there. I mean, that's
Well,
the bottom
this
line.
is
How
a
did
clear,
the
Right.
clear indication
Right.
of why. Yeah.
Right.
How did the story get out?
Oh, one of the students.
Oh,
said
the
something.
actual hazing incident? Yeah, a student reported it to the principal, and then that would happen. I think the incident happened on a Wednesday. The incident was reported on a Thursday, and then they decided the Friday morning to cancel that game Friday night.
So now, today, where do things stand with the team? And
Well, they don't have a coach, and I mean the contract has been renewed, and there was at one point there's 11 students that were up there reading prepared statements. Obviously very nervous. To kind of be 15, 16-year-old kids and kind of speak out against
Right.
the school board of adults. I mean it's a pretty intense environment, especially with the crowd. You can see the picture on the front page. There's the crowd of people there, and I think they did a great job. I mean, speaking their minds about why they love their football coach, and
right, and in Groton, it's a really small town, and Groton
Yeah.
football
It's
is
very
like
small.
it's a big deal.
Something. It's almost
Is there
like a
any
little.
criminal charges? against
Yeah, the
those
two kids, yes,
Oh, okay.
yes.
Wait, 2 kids stuck there?
I don't know if 2 did it, but 2 were definitely involved.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It may have been 1 and 1 holding down, or something like that.
But yeah, Groton loves their football. I remember going to cover a game there a couple years ago
Mm-hmm.
on a Friday night and just driving through the town, and
Yeah, it's packed.
stores shut down.
Right.
Like, it's like almost a little Texas.
It's like Midwest.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
and for a small community like this, something like this to happen, it stinks. I mean, everyone knows each other. Everyone feels like they're looking out for each other, and for something like this to happen, and kids get in trouble, and
Well, when does the football season start again? Not until the summer, right?
not until end of August or September.
So they have
Yeah.
time to regroup.
They got time. They got
Okay.
time.
All right. Well, maybe we will check back with them. So that brings us to our final story, which is the ongoing saga of Jason Fain being refused tax abatements by the Industrial Development Agency of the county.
Right.
And this week we ran a guest opinion from Gary Ferguson, the executive director of the Downtown Ithaca Alliance. And his primary point would seem to be that incentives abatements are incentives, which was the headline I gave it. And so what the decision to deny him the abatements in order to build this 36 unit housing place in a center of a city that direly needs housing was that he violated the spirit of the application for the abatements. He actually ticked off all the things that certainly the city asks you to do, but because he's a jerk, according to a lot of people, he didn't build any sort of green technologies into the building, and therefore he just isn't on board with what we want to do with our city, and therefore he should go get lost.
Right. I guess he did the bare minimum of the
Right.
requirements, and I guess that rubbed some people the wrong way.
Well, it rubbed the business community the wrong way because, is that what tax abatements are for? Is to enforce your political philosophy rather than just try to get people to build downtown, because it would be cheaper for him to go and build somewhere else.
Yeah, it's bizarre how there's really no way to know how much impact it being Fain really has had. But I asked the mayor about it because, as we've said, developing as much as he can is one of his priorities, and even he wasn't for this project.
Right.
So
He missed the vote, but it wouldn't have mattered because he was going to vote against it anyways.
right, and he gave the same reasons, that it was only one use residential, not mixed use.
Yeah.
And that it was in a weird location on a slope. But again, it just seems like there's something more here, and that maybe it was personal. It's hard to tell.
So they're going to take a look at.
So right, they're at the end of the day, the city and IDA have to go back to look at this tax abatement program and see where the miscommunication happened. And
Well, in the meetings that I went to, basically the county was saying that the city is really kind of lax about all this, and that and I looked, their application has nothing about green stuff
right,
at all.
doesn't.
and when you go to the TCAD site, it's not a big deal there either. So it's one of these things of like, well, everybody knows that this is important to us, and therefore, you should know to add this stuff in. So apparently now they're going to be, instead of implicit, it's going to be explicit.
Gotcha.
If the politicians have their way rather than the business community, because the business community just wants
Right, because that'll just
affordable
make it one more
building.
thing that developers have to do to
Right.
get stuff off the ground.
Okay. Well, I guess that does it for us. So,
This will be Chris's last show.
yes,
right.
I was about to say. So thank you for participating
Yeah.
in the studio and also in the control room.
Yeah, that's right.
I still stand in awe of your Adobe Premiere skills. So good luck in grad school.
Thanks.
All right. And this is Keri Blakinger, who is changing her role around here, but you won't know it.
Well,
Now-
you will if you go to ithaca.com, which now you'll be kind of
Yes.
the mastermind behind that.
Yes. Web editor.
And Mike will be coming Chris
I'll be that guy.
with some changes, and will still be showing up, but now be talking about sports.
And then hopefully we'll be
We'll
hiring a new reporter
Yeah,
and a
soon
new
we'll
face.
have a new face out here. So, and okay, speaking of congratulations and thank you to Joe Scaglione for our wonderful opening montage sequence. And this has been Around the Lake, and it's a discussion program among the staff of the Ithaca Times and the Finger Lakes Community Newspaper. Thank you for watching, and we'll be back again next week. Bye-bye.